Yes, my resting heart rate is 45. Mine right now is 80.
Good morning. I'd like to call the October 19th meeting of the Environmental Resource Committee to order. Can we stand and pledge allegiance?
I'm going to sit, no, being disrespectful.
You're fine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Now we can see.
All right, we have a draft agenda. Are there any amendments anyone would propose for the agenda?
I've got a question out of ignorance, I guess. There was a lady here that wanted to make a comment, I guess. I guess she left, did she? Apparently.
I think she stepped out. She's
Oh, well,
coming
anyway,
back.
never mind.
She can do that in the public comments
Yeah,
section.
okay, never mind.
Well, we have the comments on the agenda, and we have it open public comments at the end.
Never mind.
And
So I
I
think
would
we're-
remind everyone that these, any comments made by the public are not for deliberation.
Correct.
We should listen and be thankful for that,
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm
but
moving.
not get into a discussion.
Gotcha. I got. You're looking at me, but I remember one time we got into a big discussion with somebody.
Yeah, I know. We're not perfect.
I mean, it was a good discussion. Anyway, I'm moving the agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, old business or public comment on agenda items. Ma'am, do you have any comments on our agenda? Thank you for coming today. Old business. Earth Day, Arbor Day 2023 planning. Chad, we'll let you start with that.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will be moving to start the planning process for the Earth Day Arbor Day in 2023 in April. I will be working with John to hand out the new packet as far as events in the park and go over that with him. As far as working with John, Steve, and Rich last year with that, there are some new kind of twists with that. More as we grow bigger and this event gets bigger, we will be looking to have to manage parking and stuff like that, and town resources should be available. So we'll start the early process and planning with that, and that way we don't get into the time constraint that we did last year. So.
Because it relates to Arbor Day, I just was the thought came to my mind where we stood on Tree City, USA. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, I'm working on the application now. I'll be reaching out to a couple this board to help with that process. So
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Or? All right, can we get an update on the Resilient Coastal Community Phase 3?
the update that I have is that I know we were awarded the grant for Phase 3 of the RCCP, and that we are working with McGill and Associates on the engineering of that plan. I've talked with Lisa. It is with McGill. I will be providing more. I am waiting on Phase 4 to drop. Grant funding for that, which will allow the engineering and design to be put into place.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, new business. First item is the Sunset at Sunset 2022 subcommittee discussion. I will start that off. Rich and Candace and I were working together to try to prepare for ERC to be a exhibitor at the Sunset at Sunset. We got excellent support as always from Chad. The one thing that we did get done before was this banner. And I think everybody saw this before the meeting got started. So this is a banner that was going to hang up in the booth and be behind our table and hopefully stir interest and discussion with the public about what we do. So, and the banner is timeless, so we can use it at Earth Day, Arbor Day. We can use it any place it's appropriate. So that's a good start. Candace, you or Rich have anything else?
Just for the record, since this will go in the minutes, the event was canceled because of the approach of Hurricane Ian.
Yes.
I am just curious, though, this is a little bit off topic for us, how the parking was going to be managed. I guess they're going to shuttle people back and forth from a couple of different sites.
They had arranged 3 different remote parking areas, and there would be shuttling transportation to bring people in. That was, I believe that would be a first for the town.
Yes, and they were also going to shut down the road from the roundabout down to the boat landing and redirect traffic around as well. So,
Anyway.
Well, it was a good plan. I'm
Yes.
sorry it didn't work. We were disappointed.
It was
But safety first.
The
It was
foundation.
heartbreaking. That Sunset at Sunset Committee does a great job.
yeah.
Yeah,
They spent the whole year and it just all got blown away.
yeah.
no pun intended.
Glad to see it.
You can't win an argument with Mother Nature, though.
No.
All right. Earth Day, Arbor Day 2023. We need to form a subcommittee to work together with the full committee and with Chad to plan the event for next April.
So I thought we had already set that subcommittee. Or maybe we just did our volunteering last.
Refresh my mind.
Our green committee was taking,
Responsibility.
I guess those are 2 different, because you had talked about, this council talked about, committee had talked about the ad hoc subcommittee
Mhm.
to help with the
Right.
events.
With events, right?
Right. So, and then I thought we went from there to, maybe not, there to having the green subcommittee take on the Earth Day, Arbor Day.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Well, thank you.
I
Are
certainly
there
agree.
other
I,
is there
I, I had
discussion of this?
I agree with Rich. I thought that we had sort of taken that responsibility, at least for this year.
Okay, well,
And then-
memory failed me there, so, shall we make a motion, a formal motion that the, Green Subcommittee be the event coordinator for Earth Day, Arbor Day 2023?
I would move that the Green Subcommittee take responsibility.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, that
And,
was
and I
easy.
think if there's other people that would like to help
I
with
would,
it,
I would volunteer to be,
I'm sure we're going to use help along the way. And I think Rich, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you volunteered to sort of chair us through this since you've done it before.
That's fine.
so remind me who's on the green subcommittee, so I have it here in the notes.
Mila, Rich, and I.
Okay.
But then we would need input, like you're saying,
Yeah.
from recycling committee, subcommittee.
Right. We're,
And from the environmental subcommittee,
right.
from the chair.
Okay.
So it is right, it's an
Right.
ERC event, not just a green subcommittee event.
Right.
Like I said, I'm willing to be,
Thank you, because I know
I mean,
you've
we'll
got
all
great
be in
experience from
support.
doing
We've
it
all
last
got your
year.
back.
well, I think,
But- But we can, only three of you can meet together outside of a
Okay.
committee meeting, committee meeting to work on things.
I think there was a lot of lessons learned last
Right.
year on. I thought it went really well, but I think there's other things we could do.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Now, one thing Don has brought up with the recycling committee was in Dr. Candace and I, and he stepped up to be the chair of the subcommittee.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the green subcommittee wants to appoint a chair.
Did you give us an email suggesting you would do that, Rich?
That we would,
I'm trying to think if we got sent an email saying if we didn't want to do it, you were willing to chair it.
for that. But,
Did he send us?
If you remember that.
so I-
I don't remember that.
I would suggest you
Can we
consider.
discuss it and we'll
Yeah, I
decide?
would, you don't have to make a decision today.
Right.
Chad, is this appropriate?
Yes. So what I'm going to do, I wrote down 2 notes here. I will be reaching out to Candace, Steve, and Mila. There is an application.
Rich.
What did I say, Steve? Yeah, here I go. I did this again last year too, so my apologies. I will be emailing you, the 3 of you. John submitted an application, so the date is good. But in the recent changes at the UDO with the temporary events, there's a new application and stuff we'll need to go over. So over the next couple of weeks, you'll get that application probably by Friday. Over the next couple of weeks, the 3 of us or the 4 of us will need to sit down to go over everything because there's some legwork that we need to start on sooner than later, especially with the surrounding businesses that we'll need to start working with and coordinating with to get this moving. So.
And we can, because you're the liaison to the ERC, we can do that without violating the quorum thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And only 6 months away.
Yeah,
I know, it'll go fast.
it's better than 45 days.
That's right.
It'll go fast.
Time goes fast when you have fun.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would suggest you think about possibly appointing the chair, or you rotate that responsibility amongst the 3 of you. But it's easier for one person to coordinate with others than 3
I'd be
people.
willing to do that if that's okay with
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
And
All right.
John, real quick.
Especially at least until we do Earth Day, Arbor Day, because that's going to be, I think, one of the main things we work on, and you've got that experience, and
Next year we will have 4.
we can pull
people who are
in
experienced with
Steve
that.
where we need to.
I thought I had put on my calendar when this event is scheduled. Is that April 22nd?
Yes,
Okay,
Saturday.
gotcha.
And I will be sending out a reminder
Thank
to
you.
our past participants if that's okay.
Chad, did you have something?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Thanks, Don.
All right, so then we get into our subcommittees. So we have 3, and I put them in alphabetical order. So we have the first is the climate subcommittee discussion, and following it, it's very timely to have a climate discussion after a hurricane. I have presented each one of the members with this draft committee report on the observations that we have around Hurricane Ian and recommendations. Basically, the National Weather Service issued a report after the hurricane. They said we had maximum sustained winds of 45 miles an hour at 3:53 in the afternoon. Maximum wind gust of 74 at the same time. I know there's a lot of people in town that feel like the winds were a lot stronger than that, but that's the official record. Rainfall, there's a whole lot of different readings all around town, but somewhere around the bridge is a rain gauge that recorded 3.77 inches. I don't think I saw any rain measurements greater than that, so we had less than 4 inches of rain, thankfully. So all the flooding that occurred was from storm surge. The storm surge was approximately 6 feet along our coast. There were official measurements at Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, 6.42 feet at Myrtle Beach, 5.06 feet in Wilmington. So somewhere in there is where we are, and so it's approximately 6 feet. And I'll talk more about storm surge later. The high tide was at 11:30 here on the beach. Low tide at 5:38. The moon was not full. It was not new, so we weren't in king tide conditions. Ian made landfall at Pawleys Island at about 2 o'clock with sustained winds of 85 miles an hour. It's only 55 miles away, and our winds were almost half of what theirs were. We were on the east side of the eye of the storm, which is the strongest for wind, and that's what drives the storm surge. We had the highest winds occurred after high tide, but those winds built on the storm surge built on a rising tide, and the wind keeps the tide elevated. It retards the decline of the tide. So we had conditions for flooding that occurred. We had strong storm surge, we had the tides, and we had the winds. We had erosion on the dunes on the beach, but I don't believe there were any dunes that were breached. Water came in from Tubbs Inlet and Little River Inlet to flood the area behind the island. And it flooded it from the island all the way up to the mainland side of the Intercoastal Waterway. The island was flooded in many places. The Causeway Road, it was reported to have water 3 feet deep over it. The worst mainland flooding was reported along Shoreline Drive East and on Shoreline Drive West. The water came up to the edge of the road, but didn't flood over it, as far as I know. The Calabash River Bridge was underwater. We were watching the water level in the marsh at the 18th hole of the Oyster Bay Golf Course because there's an overflow onto Lakeshore Drive if the water gets too high. It did not overflow onto Lakeshore Drive, but this is an area of high risk that we have to watch for future storms. I think we should recommend that there be a meeting to take place with the community action team for the resiliency program and town staff to review all the details of what we learned from the storm and update the resilience strategy.
I think that's a good point, John. I also think it may be of some value to have somebody from the county emergency management staff here to give their perspective. What they saw.
I actually have footage of it, the whole thing on camera because I watched it from, it's interesting. The way you describe this is pretty accurate.
Yeah, we have an eyewitness. Steve had his house and his property flooded.
The comment I would make too would be this is like you could use this to replicate higher intensities. Like if we had said we had 85 and we were like, we were in the east, the dirty side of the storm, but what would happen if it was 110 or 150? And, you can I have flood insurance, which is good. But I mean, I'm just saying,
Sure.
the thing I noticed, and I've noticed, and I brought it to John's attention, is that um, we have a lot of issues with water on the mainland that overflow and flow back into the intercoastal. And I'm using my street as an example because it's like a ramp, it's like a slide, and when we have like heavy rain, there's a flash flood that comes down the street, and it's like a wall of dirt and garbage, and it flows right into the intercoastal waterway because my street's perpendicular to the waterway. It's unusual. Most of them go this way. So I just think from a storm management perspective, you have a much larger storm, a lot more rain, you're going to have a ton of garbage going into the intercoastal.
Steve, where you are, is there like a little inlet or something, or a?
You have to go look at the street. It's like a peninsula, but
Yeah.
my point is you
Well,
can see in my
but the
yard
natural
there's-
flow where it's going to go into
Yeah,
the.
it is like it'll rain and rain and rain, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden it'll build up into like a small flash flood. It'll go right down the street
Yeah.
into the waterway. And,
Well-
and you got trash, oil, all that stuff coming off the roads just piling into the marsh.
Which is,
Times
definitely a concern.
1,000.
Well,
Right,
and
yeah,
I don't
the
know how
other-
many other
the
spots
other
are like
roads.
that, but I think you get the hurricane, but
Well, there's two different issues there in my mind. One is stormwater,
right,
which goes out to the intercoastal, and
right,
the other is flooding that comes in from the intercoastal.
correct,
In this case, we were looking at storm surge, and
correct,
I think
correct.
the key thing that I learned from this storm is that if we at 6 feet of storm surge, it was impactful.
Very. It's the worst I've ever seen.
And if it was greater than 6 feet, I think it would have been much more impactful. Because I think if the marsh at Oyster Bay Golf Course had overflowed onto Lakeshore Drive, that would have been
Yeah.
that would have been a big problem.
Yeah.
But it didn't. So we can learn from that, and we can evaluate what might be done about that.
Mhm.
So what I would, after we discuss this, if we all agree, then I would suggest that we send this up to town council for the next council meeting, and we present it to council and have discussion with them about it.
I'm with Steve. I think this is a pretty good summary of the event because I live in Windfall. We had a different experience, and I don't recall it being that impactful out there. But I'll move that we present this.
Well, we're not done yet.
oh,
Okay?
what?
The other,
yeah, okay.
The one other point I want to make too, and I don't know if this is in here, I've noticed because there was a lot of salt, all the trees along the intercoastal,
Mhm.
all the leaves, there was a lot of salt
Oh,
damage.
there always is. There always is.
It's more, so I've never seen it this bad. So
Yeah.
like a lot of all the vegetation, all the trees,
Well, let me
all the leaves are
let
coming
me
off
share
the
this.
trees.
When I lived in Charlotte, I was about 4 miles from the ocean as the crow flies. We got salt up there in our windows and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's out there. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I agree, Steve. It's at least since I've been here, and I've been here through several of these hurricanes, more salt damage. Even my live oaks were.
Yeah. All I
The
live oaks,
storm
all the
side of
trees
those
come
oaks
off.
is gone, and the other side is still sort of green.
Yeah, you wonder too, we're in our third or fourth year of
Yeah.
not quite drought conditions, but
Mhm.
we are 35% short on our water.
We
on
are.
our rain
I've
for
been
this year.
noticing that.
So if the leaves were already dry, just waiting to absorb moisture, yeah, so they
And
could
it
have
was
accepted.
salt.
Yeah, and the salt. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we see pine trees, even at our house, that got burned.
Yeah.
Dogwoods look great.
But
So
you could
the-
use this, John, as a forecast for what would happen if you had higher winds.
Well, to me, it's a
Cat two.
trigger point.
Yeah.
Up to 6 feet. We had problems. They can be recovered from quickly, I believe, except in your case.
Well, I recovered from it quickly.
Okay. But if it goes greater than 6 feet,
2
Then it's
feet
gonna-
higher would have been in your house,
then it's
right?
going to be much more damaging,
Okay.
which sounds intuitive, but it could be significantly. The other part of this report is related to Tubbs Inlet. Tubbs Inlet is an inlet hazard area. The way the winds came in off the ocean, they just pushed the water right through the inlet. That inlet has been impacted by a number of hurricanes in the recent years. In 2016 with Matthew, in 2018 with Florence, in 2020 with, I always pronounce this wrong, Isaias,
Isaias, yeah.
and then this year with Ian. And what I was able to do is get photographs of the inlet from different government services, and you can see the changes that have taken place in the inlet from 2016 every year. Now, unfortunately, the photograph that was taken this year was taken 3 days after the hurricane, and they took it at high water. So it's hard to see the channels and the shoaling that took place. But there are changes taking place in that inlet, and there are changes to the shoaling in the middle of the inlet, and I believe there's changes in the channeling in the inlet. One thing that's got to be watched are changes that take place after the work that was done up at Ocean Isle Beach on their new jetty. There's some people that believe that's going to have damaging impact to the inlet. That remains to be seen. But we've got a catalog of photographs, and we've got a lot of information about the past. I've gone back through all the records of the prior hurricanes, and the storm surge with Ian is believed to have been the highest experienced in a long time. So I think we should recommend that additional area photographs be taken of the inlet at the lowest of low tides and see what the changes are that have taken place to the channels and the shoaling, and we'll also see what impact that might have had on the dredging. So are there any other discussion about this?
How do we go forward?
Well, we
Present
get
it
a
to the town
motion
council?
to approve this and take it to town council, and
Okay,
then
well, I move that
get
we,
their approval to do what they want us to do.
so I move that we accept this. Thank you very much for preparing it. Great job, and that it be presented to town council.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye. And thank you for pulling this together, committee.
Well,
great
Steve Levine was out of town on family issues, and Steve Hines and I were out running around the island just before the flooding occurred. But we were both smart enough to stay home when it got real bad, so we didn't really see the,
I got off the island by 11:45.
yeah.
1 o'clock they closed the bridge. So.
Well, I was on it at 12:15, but
Yeah, I know.
That's scary.
It looked
Yeah, storm
It looked
watchers.
from where I was that the town had Public Works out monitoring consistently throughout the storm, and was very reassuring to see them.
yeah, I think town staff.
They
did a great
they
job.
went down Shoreline Drive, they went down Lakeshore Road. I mean, they were there.
Unfortunately, we've got a lot of experience in this.
Yeah. Okay, the next subcommittee discussion would be the Green Subcommittee.
So our project now is Earth Day for the next Earth Day Arbor Day for the next 6 months. but also there are some. John said he was in Wilmington yesterday and saw they are Bee City, USA. So and neither one of us had any idea, right? But there are a lot of those type. Well, Tree City is one, of course. There's a monarch butterfly corridor. There are National Wildlife Federation, North Carolina Wildlife Federation. There are several of those kind of designations we can apply for. And I remember talking to one of the town staff. They said any positive recognition they get from state is good. So if our committee, and we haven't discussed this yet, we haven't had our first subcommittee meeting, our committee can take that on also, see what's required, and see if we can submit the application. I'm sure we have to send that through JAD. Any applications like that for town recognition for the actions they're taking. And we'll meet soon for our Earth Day event. We have a banner to put up. We're working on pricing for seedlings. I'm not sure where our budget is. And maybe, Chip, maybe we have a budget already to give out actual legitimate size native plants that people can actually put into the ground. I had some plants from my wax myrtles. All are, I got them at 4 inches tall. They're now 2 feet tall in 6 months or so. A native plant, native shrub. So we may get more of those, and I don't know, to work on our Arbor Day, our Tree City USA, because I think that's an Arbor Day Foundation designation. If we need to buy if we need to give out trees also, or if we need to buy trees from Arbor Day, that's something I need to check on, or we need to check on. And John just reminded me, this is Federal National Native Plants Week.
Ooh.
Every week ought to be Native Plants Week. And I just got an update from our governor, Cooper, that he's also designated North Carolina Native Plant Week.
Cool.
So, and I know it's very, I want to use the word progressive, but I know state government for the last several years has been putting plants along the roadways, on state property, state parks, state funding for state grants are based on a percentage of your plantings need to be native plants. I don't know if it's 40% or 60%, but at least North Carolina is heading that way. Sunset Beach should be heading that way, and the rest of the coast here should be going that way. So those are a few things that I think we're going to start working on.
Any other questions for the Green Subcommittee or any comments?
Just a little comment that Candace and I kind of brainstormed a little bit today. I think that Earth Day is an excellent event, and last year attendance, it was the first ever, right, as I understand, in Sunset Beach, and attendance was pretty good for the first event.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, and Chad, maybe you correct me if I'm going too far, maybe a couple of outreach events leading to the Earth Day would raise awareness, because there are a lot of newcomers to the area, and if we could identify our priorities, our goals as far as environment, green issues, and maybe meet with HOAs and meet with the public to not educate but raise awareness, I think our attendance at the Earth Day will be higher.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I started working this morning after breakfast, my anniversary breakfast, on some additional nonprofit environmental groups that we can contact. That's where there's some blanks there. Steve and I tried several people every week we're out doing an outreach. Some people were positive, some people didn't reply.
Last year, though, you didn't have much lead time. So
Exactly.
that's a big advantage this
right.
year.
Yeah. So I'm not a real patient person anyway. So now with 6 months we should be able to do that. And Steve last year got us contact information for UNCW and also the Forest Service. So which would bring in state universities and state entities if we can get them interested. North Carolina, John brought up last year that North Carolina actually has Earth Day or Arbor Day sometime in March.
Yes. Okay. Arbor Day is different in North Carolina, celebrated earlier in the year because the growing season's earlier.
Right, yeah.
But
like 6 weeks earlier.
But the people with Arbor Day encourage people to celebrate Arbor Day whenever they can.
Right. So that would be one out. Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
One outreach. And then Don brought up the last meeting that National Recycling Day is next month sometime. So we may not get anything together for that this year, but maybe next year, if the recycling, we could join the recycling committee if they can put something together.
I'll have to track that down. I don't
Well,
know.
and I recall prior to the current council, we had discussions about presenting to HOAs and things, partly to educate them about ERC goals and about recycling and whatever our topics would be. So that's something we can still revisit. I think
So we
that's
could put a list
important.
together. There's also National Make a Difference Day, which is October 25th, the fourth Saturday this year, the fourth Saturday of October. Right, so it's 6 months before our Earth Day event. Again, we won't have time to do anything this year, but if next year, but yeah, that's a great idea. I think there are several opportunities to reach out to the neighbors in the community, and not just because I know we're a Sunset Beach Council committee, but if we have friends and neighbors in Ocean Isle, Calabash, we need to, without spending funds, I guess, we need to invite them to join us also, and we'll be. But yeah, good idea.
Okay. Recycling Subcommittee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to mention, before I really get into recycling, talking about the hurricane, that the current city manager in Fort Myers, Florida, Marty Lawing, was county manager here back until about 10 years ago or so. I was flipping channels during the storm, or after the storm, and had interviewed the city manager in Fort Myers. I know that guy. He left here and went to Guilford County as manager, then went to Fort Myers about a year ago. So Marty Lawing, I bet he wishes he had made that move. But
Stepped into that.
anyway,
Wow.
I want to report a couple things. One, as I mentioned, I think by email to Candace and to John, that I'm going to try to get the number of recycling carts that are out there now versus the last 3 or 4 years to see which way the trend is going, and also get from Chad the number of residential permits, number of homes built during that same time period to see what percentage of housing units have recycling carts, and see what that tells us, if anything. So that's in the works. Also, I am going to
And
contact.
Don, I just would like to add it. I think it's really important to do it this year because they had a significant increase in cost, and
Yeah,
so it'd be
yeah.
helpful to know
Yeah.
what impact that
Yeah.
had. Did people turn their carts back in rather than pay them?
Yeah, in fact,
Some people I know went the other way and signed up this year.
we just, my wife and I just signed up. I got tired of going down to 904 in the county, the one in the county park. And also going to invite the new county solid waste recycling person to one of our meetings, probably in January. She started about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and give her some time to get her feet on the ground and have her come down to a meeting to discuss where the county is with recycling and what have you. My wife and I just started recycling, I guess about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and had a neighbor stop by one day and say, "What are you doing that stuff for? That's a waste of time. Don't you know that the recycling goes into the county landfill anyway?"
I've heard the same thing.
So that's an urban legend that will not go away. So I didn't even start on him. He said,
I was
"Oh, it's a
gonna-
waste of time."
Going to say he asked the wrong person.
Well, he I should have said, well, you think they spend all,
You're part of that HOA. Why, you should need to do some educating.
yeah, I'll get into that in a minute. I should have said, well, you think they spend all that money on trucks and resources and so forth to put it in the county landfill? I don't think so, but anyway, another thing, talking about outreach, I've made arrangements to be at my church's United Methodist men's meeting in January to talk about recycling from the perspective of Methodism. They are, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but the United Methodist book discipline, which is our kind of our marching orders from the United Methodist Church, talks about recycling as a good thing to do. So I'm going to talk about recycling from the perspective of protecting and saving Mother Earth, because you can't buy another Earth at Amazon or anywhere. So that talk is coming up in January. And finally, I will track down the National Recycling Day to see when it is, and have Citizen Chad send out an email to you guys. If it's pretty soon, we probably won't do anything about
I
it.
thought you said it was in November because we're moving our meeting in November.
Oh, I might have said that. Let me check. I don't recall.
I think it's the same day as our meeting, November 15th,
Which is a Tuesday next week.
which is Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. That's it, unless you guys have something.
No, I think you covered.
Couple ideas about the recycling thing. Number one, the process to sign up to me is still,
Archaic.
he said it, archaic. No. So, I redid mine. So I went online. You go online to pay, but you still have to fill out a document. And I think whatever we do, we should make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
So my opinion would be, you email everybody that's in the city with a link and say, do your recycling, you hit the link, you put in actually all that name's captured already, your address, your name, and your credit card, and boom, it's done. It's a 2-step process now. You got to go in, take the form, fill it out, scan it, or
Hard
mail
to
it,
find it too if you don't
and
know
then
look.
pay. Because I just paid, and then they were saying, well, where's your application? I already have it canned. So I had to take a picture of it and email it in. And I think people just got 50,000 things going on. They're not going
Sure.
to take the time. Even if they want to do it, they might forget. So I think we need to come up with a way to make it easier.
I think, I think the town is going to redo the website. Is that correct? And so maybe as part of that process, we can look at how the recycling committee can maybe take a look at that, because I agree with you. I think it's almost impossible to find that form on there and then to find how you go to pay. It's hard.
And we got a flyer in the mail sometime
they do.
back.
A lot of people just pitch.
Goes
they
in
just,
junk mail.
yeah, they're like, well, I'm not getting.
So the other thing is, I don't understand why, with all these people moving in, we should have a form or something for recycling that they give out and say, here's how you get your recycle can. They go to the website and register and get a can, because if you move in midterm, can't get a can until the end of the year.
I don't think that's true anymore, Steve. But what I did is call Norma down here, say we want a recycling thing, and boom, send them a check.
But you know who to call. Not everybody does.
Well, that's true.
And really, what you should do is just give everybody a can with a bill and say it's $100, and then
Well, yeah.
they don't make them just say. It's like a rounding error, right? If I have these houses are $500,000, $600,000, you're talking about $100 a year,
Well,
$110.
No, councils advise they're not ready to do that.
Yeah, just give them the can with here's $100. Okay, boom. But anyway,
I think
that's
those are some good ideas that, as the recycling subcommittee, we ought to take a look at. How do we make this an easier process? And how, when a new home is built or homes change hands, how do we inform those people about recycling?
Has anybody thought about writing in the Beacon, putting an article about recycling in the Beacon to raise awareness?
Well,
Here's our star. He knows the editor.
I know the former editor. It might be worth the time that number one, not everybody reads the Beacon. Number two, if you read it, you don't remember. Number three, you've got to be also already interested in recycling to do it. I won't say it's a waste of time, but it's something I think Steve's kind of getting at, is that really need to make it important to people and easy to do. I guess Candace mentioned, I know who to call down here, but some people have no clue. There's a town hall. Well, who at town hall? Well, it's too hard to do. I'm not going to miss it.
Or they may not even know there's a program. I only knew because when I purchased my house, those people left the cart behind for me because they had already paid for
Yeah.
that part of the year and they left it there, and then
I think Mila
I
has a
had to
great
figure it
idea.
out from there.
Yeah.
Mila has a great idea that a quarterly article or even a quarterly flyer in the paper to remind people, the newcomers and the people who are here, this is your contact information to get your and why it's
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to explain why we don't make it mandatory. The council does not make it mandatory for obvious reasons. Yeah, we recycle, but we don't use a can.
Well, I guess
To make it mandatory, I don't think would work.
I'm jaded. I'm jaded. My ex-wife was the news editor at the Beacon back in the day, so I know probably too much about newspapers, but it's worth discussing. It's worth thinking about. Maybe our little subcommittee, if we have a real in-person meeting, we talk about that whole thing,
Okay.
Myra.
Okay, well, we'll take that.
Can you get a can anytime during the year, though? I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
We got
because they have that sign-up period, but
They prorate if you're
If
outside
you're
of
prorated.
that.
Prorated.
we'll have the
after-
builders buy the can for the first year, and the can's there when they show up, and then they get a bill the second year. Do you want to keep your can or not? It's $110
It's good.
because they're building
Mhm.
how many houses?
Are they all within?
And I went and looked at the parade of homes, and I was like, they're about $300,000 more than they should be. But with that being said, you're talking about a $110 can.
It's chump change. Yeah. Oh, I agree.
All right. Well, let's. I think,
They might not know how to
I
get
think
it,
John's
you
right.
know.
We will.
But whatever.
Subcommittee could take that under advisement.
So
Yeah, well-
what if there was an additional subcommittee for a press or a publication,
Communication.
communication?
Let's think about that.
I think we need to get our arms around these subcommittees first
Okay.
before we
I
add
told
more.
him I'm no patient man. Right?
All I would say is streamline the process, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite quotes about communication from George Bernard Shaw said, "The thing about communication is you actually think it occurs," meaning that it's hard.
What was that?
George Bernard Shaw was quoted as saying, "The thing about communication is you actually think it occurs." The point being is it's hard to communicate with people.
Mhm.
It's hard.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, that is the end of our agenda on new business. We're at the point for public comments. I would remind people that there's a 3-minute period for comments. And we would love to hear what you have to say, but we're not allowed to get into discussion on anything. So, who would like to go first?
Hello, my name is Lynn Neesmith. I live at 210 Shoreline Drive East, Sunset Beach. I live here part-time, so I'm not a voter. I was really interested to hear about Make a Difference Day coming up October 25th. Well, today's a special day to me. I want October 19th to be Make a Difference Day, and I want to make a difference. You talked about the flooding on Shoreline Drive, those two low places. There's a third little low area that's on my property that was a great protection for my home during the storm. It's at 210 Shoreline East, you know, that low area right off the circle. I think that flooded. And then the next one, a little bit east, flooded. Are those the two that flooded on Shoreline East? Well,
Oh, there was Stokes, and then there was one
Stokes, yeah.
farther
down.
east.
Yeah, those two. And then, so during the surge, you can see where the water came up. And I have a natural buffer of wax myrtles, which I think you mentioned are a really good plant. I love my wax myrtles. I planted them I didn't have to pay for them. I dug up them and moved and planted, fertilized them, and they've really flourished. They look great. And they're in a low area where there was a one-time historic artesian flow on my property. And before there was city water that provided water for the home. I didn't own it at the time. And once city water came, that flow just became a natural tributary that runs into the marsh, into the waterway. And I think it's very important not to use Roundup and not to use pesticides on any tributary that runs into the marsh. So I really actively kept it very natural. Well, this morning I met with Officer Lee Hall, and I just found out that that whole area that provided an incredibly natural buffer, all those wax myrtles are salt burned because they protected the houses on the other side. And unless something changes, they're going to be sending Dusty's bush hog over as soon as possible to bush hog all the wax myrtles down, all the volunteer plants. And then what the wax myrtles that are too big to be bush hog will be chainsawed down to the ground. So this huge 8 or 10, 12-foot buffer that runs along this natural flow is not a designated wetlands because in 1956, Mr. Gore wasn't going around deliberately designating wetlands that couldn't be built on. So it's not a designated wetlands, but it's a natural wetlands. I mean, when we used to drive cars down, you'd get stuck in there if you drove your car over. So I would like to figure out a way to protect a huge grove of wax myrtles that provided incredible protection to my home during the hurricane. And I fear once they're torn down, mowed down by the town, which I'll have to pay, that my house could be destroyed. So if you talk about protecting homes, allowing a private individual protect their homes with the natural stand of wax myrtles seems like the most important thing you could allow me to do.
Lynn, your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question, not deliberation. You said the circle, I mean, you the roundabout?
Yes.
Okay, got
Shoreline Drive takes here.
you. Got you.
from the circle.
Got you.
It's a pretty main road.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Brian Miller, and my wife and I have a condo at Waterway Landing, Unit 4104. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for your responsiveness because I reached out on another issue about 2 months ago. And John, I think it was you, like within a day, you responded to my email and just to really appreciate your responsiveness. I'd just like to reinforce what Ms. Neesmith said. During the hurricane, we weren't here. We live part-time here as well. So our other home is in Cary. And, but our neighbor was here and he took a video of the storm surge. So your work to figure out, okay, how do we make sure that if a stronger storm happens, that we don't have worse damage? I think it's very thoughtful and very appreciative. And with Lynn's issue, Ms. Neesmith's issue about the storm surge that we're going to have, it's going to happen, unfortunately. And what we saw with Ian and just the video that my neighbor took with that storm, and we didn't even really prepare our unit because we went to Cary thinking it was going to be fine. The storm was going to hit south of here. And I think we were all a little surprised at how much damage we had. And Ms. Neesmith's just natural buffer area to me makes a lot of sense. And I share that concern. I drive by there every time and I just see that natural area and how protective it is. And I just think that it makes a lot of sense to just say, let's maybe call a timeout here and not tear down those wax myrtles. So thank you for that consideration.
Thank you.
So the wax myrtle's still alive and just dormant?
Right. Yes.
Should not tear them down.
This is only information if you want to take it with you, and if you don't, it sounds like most of you already know this.
Could you come and give us your...
Sorry, I'm passing out some information. There's not enough for every one of you. So if you want to just look over and
I'm
share.
sorry, we need your name.
My name is Katie Hovermel, and I live at 1429 Bay Street, Sunset Beach on the island.
Thank you.
And I know Lynn, and I feel her pain, but I didn't come to talk about that situation specifically. I would like to, before I start talking, I wanted to say, Mr. Eggert, one of my other favorite quotes from George Bernard Shaw is, youth is wasted on the young
Exactly.
I also want to comment on your survey or your summary of the effects from Hurricane Ian. That I do live on I have the westernmost facing house on the island. And during Matthew, we had a 4-foot surge, and during Ian, we had about 2 feet more. So we can tell by the way it comes up on our house. So that's pretty accurate. And we also have a weather station, and some of you probably do, but you can connect to individual weather stations if they connect to the internet, and that's a good way to get the rain gauge and the wind velocity as well. We also, you're aware, Bay Street was completely flooded, and I gave Lisa Anglin a hard time about picking up all the reeds that were left this summer that were washed in during that freak high tide, and probably it's a good thing that happened, because they would have ended up on Bay Street, because everything from the causeway, the causeway was flooded, and everything ended up on the island, that little inlet subdivision on the island. No dunes. I didn't see any dunes breached on the east end, but I am a Bird Island steward, and we surveyed Bird Island right after the hurricane. No dunes were breached during Ian, because they had already been breached by Isaias, and the water did go through, we call them the washouts, but the water did go from the ocean to the marsh through those places that were already washed out. Also, there was there's an Army Corps of Engineers survey marker that was uncovered near where the mailbox is. And that marker was laid when the jetty was done, and it has not seen daylight since then. So that just gives you an indication of how strong the waves were. But that's not why I came to talk. I came to talk about something that it sounds like you're already very aware of. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. But these are just some little short notes I've had about why native plants are important. And all of us know how much development is going on now on the mainland, everywhere, and how that affects two things. One is the destruction of the native habitat. You just think about all the insects and small critters that have been killed because of the development, but also developing the property puts an increase on our demand for water. And to me, that is extremely critical. That we're putting out lawns and shrubbery that have to be watered, and that puts a higher demand. We already have a water shortage in the summer, and now we're going to have a greater water shortage. So I'm imploring you as an environmental action committee to try to educate the public. And there's nothing we can do about the development that's going on now, but we can educate the public. And we might even want to start with our town.
Maybe your 3 minutes.
Oh,
Can you wrap up?
Yes. One is there seems to be an active pursuance of ordinances where we have to cut down all the grasses and bush hog. I would implore the committee to study those ordinances. Maybe we need to relax those and allow more natural growth. And also the park, we can start at the park. I have a little paragraph here about live oak trees depend on the leaf litter to survive. When I drove by there today, they were collecting the limbs that had been trimmed from the live oak trees in the park, and those limbs had been torn during the hurricane. If you look at all those trees, we are sterilized the ground around them. We take up all the leaf litter that is incredibly important for the resilience of that tree. And if you continue toward the town hall, the trees that are along the road that were in their natural environment, they didn't lose any branches, but our trees in the park did. I think we're killing with kindness. We're killing the trees in the park by planting grass. And so that's why I put these bits of information on this paper so you can study it more. And I'm happy to give you more education. Please talk to the town about learning.
How did you spell your last name, by the way?
Hovermale.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You say you need these back?
Well, only if you don't.
No, that's fine. Well, we don't need to.
Yeah, if you go to the extension website, there's like a slideshow.
You go to the library, they have the book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one other person here. Do you wish to speak?
She give her 3 minutes like they do in Congress. I defer my speak for her. Let me guess the meeting. Can she defer her 3 minutes?
I don't think.
One more statement.
You want to speak to the microphone?
Okay. I just think one small way to help is to try to encourage ways for people who want to have natural landscaping to have it. I don't want rocks and palm trees. I don't want astroturf. I would like to keep as much of my natural because I know what it means to the environment.
Thank you. I don't know that we can pass 3 minutes around to other speakers.
I don't know. I do have just a response, general response / comment.
We're not supposed to have discussion.
On anything?
We'll discuss it.
Not on the,
I mean, amongst ourselves? I don't think that's correct, John.
okay.
And what does the committee think? I was going to make a comment about,
Well, let's ask Chad what's
okay.
protocol. And public comments. John's suggesting that
Go ahead,
we're really
Don.
not supposed
I can
to.
hold it till next time.
No, go ahead.
Well, the point she brought up about mowing grass and so forth, I'm on the board at the HOA, Windfall HOA, and one of our biggest complaints is about unmowed area as you enter the subdivision because there's wildlife in there. Well, that's where wildlife lives. We have not had it mowed yet, although we get complaints about it not being mowed. So, to me, mowing everything out there does not make good sense. That's my comment.
Okay.
I would make a comment that somebody should look into these wax myrtles and make sure they're not mowing them down arbitrarily. If that sounds like, to me, they have a valid concern. I know we don't have authority, but I'm just making sure that somebody should follow up on that.
Chad, what's the process for appealing?
The staff is working with the applicant staff is working with Ms. Naismith to provide her with the application to appeal the decision if she would like to.
And if she chooses to appeal, will they hold off on this bush hogging until it's decided?
I'll work with Ms. Naismith to facilitate the application.
So as
So
I
if
understand
someone
it,
needed to appeal, they could, would they go through Lisa or through you?
They would go through me.
Through you.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
so as I understand it, unmowed areas violate the zoning ordinance.
It's a town code
Town
that
code.
our code enforcement
Okay.
officer regulates.
There's all kinds of unmowed areas in town. Big time. But that's anyway.
Okay, we've completed the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion we adjourn today's meeting.
Do I have a second?
Oh, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.